allows you to join a server, do a couple of hot laps, and hope you don't annoy anyone else who's currently on the track, which in some cases is easier said than done. You might have gotten used to the settings, traction control, and other tweaks you make use of in single player, but in online the server host is God and you will bend to their will. There's nothing...
The best way to describe Guitar Hero TV is to liken it to turning on your TV to MTV and playing along with whatever song happens to be on at the time, complete with advertisements for other channels and short filler videos that look like the CGI artists had too much time on their hands. Hello and welcome to Worldwide Gaming. I'm your host Ryan, and today we have two big reviews for you before we take a break over the Christmas. First, Jarryd is reviewing the Ultra Sim racer, Project Cars. Zen lists the top 10 most annoying characters, no points for guessing what number 1 is. And I look back at my failed career as a rock star with Guitar Hero Live. All that after the forecast.
The next entry in the Far Cry franchise is going back, way back. Set in the Stone Age, Far Cry Primal has players surviving against massive beasts, opposing tribes, and a world of extreme danger. It is coming out on the 23rd of February next year for current-gen consoles and PC. This remake of the original Trackmania is coming to PS4, Xbox One, and PC early next year. With gameplay features from the previous games in the series, Turbo hopes to once again mix the creativity of its level editor with the fast-paced thrills of its racing. The next game from the creators of Castle Crashers and Battle Block Theatre is coming soon. Pit People is a turn-based strategy game, a departure from the studio's regular 2D side-scrolling formula. Featuring a single-player campaign, 2-player co-op, and 4-player 2v2 battles, Pit People is looking exciting.
Naughty boys who don't listen get punished.
Developed by the awesomely named Slightly Mad Studios and released in May of this year for PC, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4, Project Cars is a racing game intended to be heavily driven by the community surrounding it. There's no unlockables here, no new components to purchase for your car, and no carefully rationed rewards like other franchises. It's just you and your ability to become one with your machine. Project Cars' intention to simulate the racing experience, as much as the driving of a car is an interesting one, but how does it stack up to the likes of console-based Forza and Gran Turismo, as well as PC-based titles like Assetto Corsa? In a completely unsurprising revelation, Project Cars focuses on the racing of cars, and it comes with the features one would expect in a racing game, with a career mode, solo to test your skills against the AI, and online multiplayer. Project Cars' approach to the career is reminiscent of Juiced from the days of the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox, with the use of calendar-based seasons which sees you progressing through races and invitationals from tier to tier. This approach has both positive and negative factors to it. On one hand, this is a fairly close approximation to a real racing career. On the other hand, I felt that I had made a mistake in choosing to start my career at the lowest tier, and it felt like the seasons were too long with too little variation. It's cool and all that I was getting praise on my driving prowess from a pseudo Twitter feed, but it didn't make up for the fact that I personally felt like it was taking way too long to progress through tiers. While on the subject of tiers, it should be noted that Project Cars allows you to choose the tier that you begin your career with. Want to ease yourself into things by driving some go-karts around? Totally fine. Prefer to race prototype cars that are going to take every ounce of your ability to keep on the track? That's fine too. While I do like the idea of seasons, I would have preferred if there was a little more choice to it. For example, maybe if I found a tier of cars I really like, I could set up that season and play it like the career does, rather than being forced into it. Or perhaps it would have worked out better if I could have tried a few invitationals first, with the option to sign on for a full season to extend my time at that tier, if I found the cars tickled my fancy. As it stands, once you selected your tier, you're locked into the season, for better or worse. The solo feature is pretty much as you would expect, tasking you to choose your car, track, and opponents. There's some extra features here that aren't as common that will allow you to set your opponent's skill level using a slider, as well as weather options which can be set to real time, which was pretty neat. They're not groundbreaking features, but it does change things up a bit. Like some races, Project Cars includes an online mode that allows you to join a server, do a couple of hot laps, and hope you don't annoy anyone else who's currently on the track, which in some cases is easier said than done. You might have gotten used to the settings, traction control, and other tweaks you make use of in single player, but in online the server host is God and you will bend to their will. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, and it makes it fair for everyone, but not everyone has the same skill level, so finding the server for you will probably take some time, partly because multiplayer is not super active, but it's enough to have some quick fun trying to top the server's leaderboard. A more robust setup that would allow for traditional starting grid races would have been nice to see. The selection of vehicles in Project Cars is quite extensive, with many types of cars represented, even go-karts, which I may have spent far too long driving. Everything is modelled very well, and each of the different types of car feel distinctly different. The dedicated race cars all feel very powerful, but will wipe out in an instant if you push them just that little bit too far, while even the performance versions of normal cars feel very sluggish by comparison. Project Cars doesn't have as many licensed cars as some other games, but there's plenty to keep you entertained. The game aims to simulate the racing experience, and in this respect it certainly lives up to expectations. The game is definitely weighted towards learning the nuances of your car, the track you've picked, weather type, and many other factors to shave increasingly small amounts of time off your laps. You can tune many aspects of your car, but I honestly didn't notice much difference, besides being able to make my car slide a bit more. I never felt much need to adjust the cars, mostly because the HUD let me know what temperature my tyres were at. I'd take it easy when they were cold, but once things warmed up I was able to go flat out from that point on. While Project Cars has extensive compatibility with many peripherals, it's not the greatest game in terms of how it controls. It occupies the simulation side of the racing genre, where the focus is more on the performance of the car as opposed to the aesthetic, but it doesn't hold up to games like Assetto Corsa. It does a good job of utilising feedback in my steering when it comes to cornering, but there's no sense of weight or speed at any other time, so it almost feels like the car is floating, which makes it really hard to gauge when I should be braking hard or lightly, even with the racing lines on. The only vehicle that ever felt like it should steer the way it does was the superkart, which isn't all that exciting given the other choices of vehicle you have. Visually, Project Cars is definitely up there with great looking titles. It doesn't take the crown, but it certainly gets pretty close. As expected, a lot of attention has gone into the models of the cars, but surprisingly, they've also put a lot of effort into things like the crowds that normally get a cursory pass from other titles, and the weather conditions all look very believable. Having said that, not everyone is going to get the same level of visual fidelity that Slightly Mad Studios were intending. The game is pretty taxing on PC, and the console versions are predictably not quite up there in graphical performance either. The sound complements the game quite well, with the higher performance cars really having a realistic punch to them, and in a nice change there's no alt-rock or punk soundtrack either. Unless you're strapped for a new racing game to play, I can't recommend picking Project Cars up at its current asking price. There are some hardcore options here that will appeal to the simulation crowd, but if you're just looking to throw cars around the track, there's plenty of other titles out there.